Welcome, Gary Temple Bodley, to my show for the third time. I am so grateful. This connection that I have had with you and Joshua over the last 2.5 years. It's crazy to think where that journey started and what led me to that. We talk about inspired thoughts, taking action, stepping through fear, not questioning things that come, just going for it and just doing it. And I look back then, 2.5 years later into where I am now and the inspired actions that I've taken. I mean, even just doing this podcast was an inspired thought. Did I know what was going to happen? No, but I just said yes. And saying yes is what I think is part of the magic in life. And once you start doing that and realizing that it's all good, and when you come from love, that's when the magic starts. And that's when life becomes unlimited and you realize you're limitless and the powerful human being you are. And I just want to thank you for being, I know you'll say, well, you're doing the work, but, just thinking of when you have a mentor or someone that's really come in your life and changed your perspective, and you get to this place in life where, 52 years old, excited every day. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even go back 5 years from now. I look back at that time in my life and the perspective. I mean, it's amazing to think. So Gary, let's go. What do you want to talk about? What's your inspired thought?
Yeah, we're inspired to be here. And just like this, we were talking about before we started, that I had the inspiration to contact you and say, let's do another podcast. And so that inspiration came to me, right? Where did that come from? Who knows? I didn't manufacture it in my head. I was out in the backyard and the idea came. So immediately when that idea comes, always fear will come with it. So the fear is, oh, Ashley probably has all these other guests lined up, or, maybe she's busy, or silly stuff, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't prevent me from acting, because all I have to do is say, hey, Ashley, I had this inspiration to do a podcast. And you could say yes or no, it doesn't matter. So I released my attachment to the outcome, and I just did what I was inspired to do in that moment. And the only thing it was to send you an email. And that led to this conversation we're having now.
Right.
So if you think in those terms, what's happening is when you're receiving inspiration, when you're in alignment, and you'll always feel this fear, but if you can act in that moment to do the thing you're inspired to do, it will lead to something else. And what it will lead to is your expansion or your awareness of who you are.
Right.
And all we have to do is say yes to all these things. Yes, yes, yes. We're not going to say to all of them, but as many as we can.
Right. I think of even starting this podcast, like I was telling you, like saying yes to this podcast, this will be 79 episodes, I think. And I haven't missed a week. And, going back there and thinking, okay, saying yes, it led me. And so it's funny because I go through my mind thinking, okay, well, now I'm in this Joshua world, and all these people that are coming into my life from high school and kindergarten, and they're just coming to me. And I'm like, gosh, but I've always had a connection with them. And we've always felt like we were soul sisters, or I've had a dream about you, or, little messages on Facebook, but nothing. There's no like, we're not connected, like an everyday thing. Right. Now, all of a sudden they've connected to me through a podcast that they listened to with you on it. And now they're part of the ascension experience.
That's
and
amazing.
I look at it and go, how did that happen? And so then my thinking is, did my saying yes to this podcast bring me to this point where it's like, okay, now we are Joshua, right? We are Joshua.
Well, and it'll bring you to so many other experiences too. Like my podcast, just doing that, we're like, no one's going to listen to this. It's not going to be anything. We're just doing it because it's fun. And so people join, and Joshua does his thing, and then it just grows and grows and grows. And then I meet, you and all the other people all over the world. I could literally go to anywhere on earth and stay with somebody.
Right. Oh, I believe it.
It's amazing. And imagine, 10 years ago, what I always say is, if I had known where I'd be 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't do it, because the version of me was so different from the version of me now that guy would have thought this guy is weird.
Right.
But this guy is living the best life ever. I mean, everything is working out. I feel better than I've ever felt in my whole life. I am having more fun, meeting more people. living in this great house in this great town with Tracy, all these friends. I mean, it's just crazy. Who would think that this would work out this way?
But yesterday in our coaching call, you were talking about that this group of ours is around 100 people or so in this ascension experience. I'm in month 4 in health and vitality, which is ending. But you were talking about, everyone in this group looks younger than they really are, or everyone like has either names of Christian or, that. How do you describe why?
Well, it was interesting because I've always noticed this, is that every time I talk to someone, I'm like, how old are you? And they're like, tell me their age. I'm like you, 52. That's crazy. You look like you're 35, right?
Oh,
and so it's universal. And then I was listening to another channel, Cryon, who's been around since the 80s. And he was talking about all of us as old souls, all the people who are listening to your podcast and my podcast, who are interested in these laws of the universe and this stuff. We've lived all these lives before, and now we're living this life where we're coming to understand who we truly are and to move into living life in love rather than living in fear. So all the humans before have lived in fear, almost all of them. There's few notable examples who haven't, but almost everyone has lived in fear. So there's been these lots of experiences of fear in humanity in the course of our civilization anyway. Now we're getting to this point of awakening where people are waking up to the fact that what they think is going on is not really going on, that they're not the victim, that they are the creator, that they chose this life, and this life has everything they need to expand and to experience who they truly are. So people are moving more towards this idea of putting love into your reality rather than succumbing to the fear or living in the fear. And then those people look younger. And I didn't know if they just looked, because I looked younger when I was a kid. I was held back in 5th grade. We traveled a lot, and everyone's like, he looks like he's in 5th grade, not 6th grade. So let's just keep him in 5th grade. And so when I graduated, I was 19, but I looked like I was 16. And I had a driver's license in 9th grade and all that stuff, but everyone thought I was a little kid. And then I grew up in college, and now I'm 6'3", 210 pounds, right. This big guy, but still looking young. And there's a poker tournament. I love playing poker, and it's a seniors event. So everyone's 50 and older. I'm 58 now, and everyone's like, you're too young to play in this, and especially when I was 50, no one believed it back then. So it's this commonality. And then all the Chris's and Christians out there, one thing Joshua says this: you chose the time and date of your birth because that time you were a vibrational match to Earth at that time. Mm-hmm. You chose your parents because you're eternally linked to them. And so you make these agreements to come in together and play these roles. You intended to explore who you truly were in this lifetime. You intended to, do all these things. And you also chose your name. Did I ever tell you that before?
I think I've heard you say that, yes.
Yeah. So my name is Gary Temple Bodley. Gary means spear, temple's a temple, and Bodley means Buddha clearing.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Holy cow.
And then so there's all these Christians and Christinas and Chrissies and Chris's. Right. And there's just so many crystals, there's so many with the Christ derivation in their name coming, into this Joshua teaching. I would say 15% or some form of Chris. Yeah.
But it's the old soul thing too. Like I feel, what I attract in my groups, I do the kids and the parents, but I look at these kids that are coming to me that are sponges and so wanting, because I teach the law of attraction and all the mindset tools to them that I thought would be amazing to know when I was their age and not be a drifter when I was in my 20s. Try to figure out life until you get to 50. Right. But, I can see these little kids come and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're like this little, how many lives have you had? Like, you can just, I can see through their little eyes.
Yeah.
But yes,
so I was like, why am I doing this? How did I get chosen? And it's because I've lived all these other experiences before. But there are and the irony is the old souls are the most youthful. We're least resistant, younger feeling, we're more exuberant. What we associate with kids, but really it's because we're offering less resistance. And then there are people who are newer souls who are really experiencing the fear and not at all aware of how the system works.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be okay with that. We have to love and accept them as they are, realizing they're more in the illusion than we are, and that we can let them have their experience instead of trying to save them.
Right. And when you say old souls, do you think they have way more past lives than the newer, younger souls?
Yeah, we old souls have more past lives.
Right.
Yeah.
And can you tell that in the group of 100 people? Can Joshua feel their, how many lives they've had?
Yeah, but it's all similar,
Okay.
But I personally can't. I have no idea. Like, to me, certain people will seem like really in fear and really,
Mm-hmm.
hold up, but they have these huge breakthroughs, and I'm like, oh, I didn't expect you to have that,
Right.
and to
Yeah.
really see it. Yeah. So I have no idea, but
I love looking at the group and hearing their questions, because I start to do that. I'm like, gosh, either that's not as evolved question, or I either have been in this work for so long that I know how Joshua's going to answer it.
yeah.
Kind of like when I listen to Abraham Hicks, I'm like,
Yeah.
I go, I know the answer. And it's kind of fun to listen to the question, because I think I know how she's going to answer that.
Yeah.
But so let me ask you this question, because I asked all my clients, I said, I'm going to be talking to Gary today. And I have a mom that has her daughter. I know it's like, why, you say we pick our parents, right? We do this in life after life after life. So she picked her daughters. She has 2 daughters. One of them is like a little angel, like we can relate. And then the other one is 14 and has this wanting to be a boy, questioning her sexuality, what she's wearing, wanting that attention, always this fight of control, right? So when I listen to Corey's questions, I hear her saying, I feel like it's a battle. And I said, well, you came together on this planet together in this world to teach each other. You chose that. You guys decided to have this battle together so you could learn something and maybe not judge. Or I need to know what you would say about that, because it's a constant. And now there's piercings last night and all these things.
Well, think of life is love school. So love and acceptance are the same thing, and fear and control are the same thing, opposite things. So we're here to learn love and acceptance, unconditional love and acceptance, which means that not only will you love and accept someone when the conditions are good, that's easy, right?
Yeah.
But learn to love and accept them when the conditions are difficult. And the only reason the conditions are difficult is because you personally have a limiting belief. So the mother of this 14-year-old has her belief system, and the 14-year-old's triggering those beliefs. And so she feels fear. She perceives that it's the daughter making her feel bad. And if only the daughter was normal, then she could feel good, right?
Right.
But that's not the point of all this. The point is to learn love and acceptance unconditionally. So you must learn to, like, she can accept easily the other daughter.
Right.
So why can't she accept this one? Well, there's some limiting belief within her. And that's what we're doing in the Ascension Experience and the boot camp, processing those limiting beliefs. The only way I could be upset over anything is because I have a limiting belief. Without the limiting belief, I couldn't be upset. Right. So it's not her. She's living her life. She's trying to figure it out. And she came here with a set of intentions that we don't know what they are. And the mother doesn't know who the daughter is either. The mother thinks the daughter is the daughter, but the daughter is this equal soul that they're eternally linked, and they've known each other for eons. And when they return to non-physical, she'll go, oh my God, I had no idea that was you.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
But when you're so easy for Gary to say, or Joshua, they don't have children. So, you're in a life with these kids. And I hear even Jackie saying, Gary, you take my babies for a week and then tell me how many self-limiting beliefs you have.
No, Gary can't do it. Joshua could do it, but Joshua doesn't care. That's the whole thing is whatever your life is, you've come to learn how to love. And so you set it up before your birth, all this stuff is set up. I'm going to come in and have this kind of relationship with you, which is going to trigger your limiting beliefs. Are you going to try and control me, or are you going to try and accept me? Mm-hmm. And so that's your choice. And you're making those choices all the time, because while the 14-year-old is triggering, she's also being loved as well. Right. So most of it is love.
Right. Yes.
And just occasionally there's triggers, but the triggers feel painful. And so we spend most of our time trying to fix those, trying to control that out of our experience, instead of leaning into it. Oh, I'm feeling terrible right now because of this behavior. What can I do? I can't control her. That's never going to work, because control is based in fear, and all control does is separate you from the subject of your fear. But everything you want is on the other side of that fear.
Right.
So if your friend could just let it go and say, you do whatever you want, it doesn't, go to school, don't go to school, it doesn't matter. Whatever you want, I will love and support your decisions, because I know that you have an inner guide. Now, the husband will probably think that's crazy. No, you have to control, right? But ultimately, it's all comes down to this relationship. This is an eternal relationship. Do I want to feed this in fear or feed it in love? And if you can feed it in love, it'll be for your benefit and the benefit of not just that relationship and that family, but of the entire mass consciousness.
Right. Our ascension, like we're ascending. So it's like you're almost hindering that growth by doing that.
Well, you're not hindering it. It's like saying, okay, I'm on this ladder to this ascension, and there's one rung I hate, and I'm just going to stay here for a while until I control it. And then you realize you can't control it, and then you just climb to the next rung. You just let it go. Right. And so it's part of the progress. It's an obstacle, or it's a lesson or a training session, and it could last the entire lifetime, or you could have it done in 1 minute. It's your choice. Now, when you're in it, and when you've had this relationship, and where you really have these limiting beliefs that you're not even aware of, you don't even know they're limiting beliefs. You just think it's true. It's true. She needs to behave. It's true. She has to go to school. It's true. She has to graduate. Otherwise she won't get a good job, blah, 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 blah. Right. All the assumptions that we've ever had in our life are false if they're limiting. Mm-hmm. That's it. The only truth is that connection, that relationship. That's the only thing that matters. Everything else is just, set decoration.
I know, but being a parent, sometimes that's a tough road to go down. Like, you just think you're here to, I'm getting to the place where I used to be so, these are mine. I don't want time to go by fast, and don't put on a baby video because it'll make me cry, all this stuff. And now that I'm in these teachings, I'm like, they came through me, they're on their journey. I will be there to guide them until they leave this home, and always be there as their mother. But I just look at it so differently. And when I now am coaching these parents, and I see the struggle, they're like, oh, well, what, I'm going to let her pierce her ears and go do her nose pierce and lip and all that, and I get her tattoos. And I'm like, I know what you mean. So that's the hard part when you, as a parent,
Yep. Well, you have to come to this conclusion that from your perspective, does control work? Does that control improve the relationship? Does it add more love into your reality? Or is it completely useless?
Right.
And what's more important, what they look like or your relationship with them?
Right. Exactly. Oh, I love it. Thank you. That will really help her.
See, parenting's easy.
Yeah, exactly. Coming from the master.
Coming from the one who has no kids.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I interviewed this guy the other day, for my podcast, and it opened up a new door that I saw you today on our call kind of go there. And I think that's why the chat was going, but he was talking about, you're in the eagle, and you're in this, and your souls in all these different areas. And even I was listening to Jackie's podcast, like the tree, the squirrel, but there's different levels, or what's the word? It's not levels, but planes of existence, or, how you get Joshua, where you go to in your meditation. That is what I'm talking about. Can you expand on that?
Okay. So first we have to understand that our human perception of reality, our ability to perceive things is highly limited.
Mhm.
So we have a belief system. That's the structure that allows us to live in this reality. And that perception of reality that's created from our belief structure is not true. It's highly limited, right?
Right.
But it's a filter, and it allows in what makes sense to that belief structure. So Joshua can only use English words because I can only speak English words, right? And so they can only go through my belief system. So what they do is they chisel away at all the limiting beliefs over time and give me experiences that add clarity. So they'll have me watch this video, or I had the psychedelic experience, or, listen to something else, or watch this. Like I watched two documentaries. I watched two documentaries about the Holocaust, one from the perspective of the victims that survived it, and
Right.
one from the perspective of the Germans who lived in the towns around the concentration camps who didn't do anything, right? And so it chips away our belief system over time, so that we come from this very limited perception of reality. Think about an ant in a ant farm on the wall. That's its whole reality, and wouldn't be able to perceive anything else.
Right.
Well, we are highly aware compared to other animals, but yet our perception of reality is limited. But we're seeking the truth, and humans are designed to gather more information to make life better and to control life more. So on both sides of that. So if you think about other dimensions, what's really happening is it's all existing at the same time.
Right.
But we have this perception of time because that's what we're used to. And if I didn't believe that channeling was a possible thing, I would never be able to channel. So I have to have that belief, right? And so that belief came to me through Abraham. But I thought that Abraham was the only one in the world. And then all of a sudden I start channeling. So I think it's super weird. How could I be the other channel in the world? Turns out there's lots of channels. So my belief system, because I was led to The Secret and to Abraham, and I resonated with it because there was something in my pre-birth intention, this would come out at some point. So then the belief system comes out, and then it gets opened and opened and opened, and more empowering and more empowering and more empowering till I have this experience and that experience, and then this experience, which was my awakening experience, where I saw how this whole system works and who I truly am. And then from that point, I still have all these, human doubts and fears and stuff, but processing all of that stuff. And that's what all last year was. So what we have to understand is what we see with our senses is just scratching the surface, and it's unique to us, and it's based on our beliefs. Right. As we open our beliefs, then we get to see more things, like noticing all the numbers that line up on the clock.
Yeah.
Noticing when, like, you're talking about me with your husband, and then I send you an email, that synchronicity and all this stuff, noticing all that, noticing the truth behind all this facade, and then living as if this life we created is the perfect life for us.
Right.
Yep.
Yes. I want to talk about, we've talked about it before, but I'm so a believer in vibration, and we talked about it on the call a minute ago. And, I'm thinking of, I live in a place now, after being with Joshua and you for the last couple years, in this vibration where I can't go below, it's like I'm on this trajectory of, like, every day, if this is like a miracle, like, and I do live like that. I'm admitting that, but I live in a place of, this is a miracle. And what do I get to see today and give to people? And I feel like I'm ascending. Do you believe that you can only go higher? Because once you get to that height, you can't, when you start dipping, you're like, oh, get back. Explain that.
I think that everyone can only go higher, that the illusion of rock bottom is still an expanded place. So you're either exploring fear, or you're exploring love. So you and I are exploring love. So we wake up. Do you do this? Do you wake up and say, I get to be Ashley today?
Oh my gosh. You would want, I don't know if you'd want to be a fly on the wall in the morning at 4 o'clock.
realization last year. I go, oh my God, I get to be Gary Temple Bodley today.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be anyone else. Now, my whole life before that was like, oh, how can I be like this or like that or the other thing? So this is an amazing thing. But because we know too much, right? We've learned stuff, we've altered our belief system, and we've had experiences. From that, we've gained clarity. And we know that what we want is to feel good, and we feel good by being in alignment, which means having the same perception of reality as our inner self has,
Right.
from that non-physical position that sees more than what we can see. So we trust that if we're feeling good, we're perceiving everything as good. Everything's fine. And if we're feeling bad, it's something that we're perceiving from a limited perspective that is not true. And so we say, oh, hold on, that's just that fear. And now I don't know if I like fear, but I like noticing the feeling of it.
Yes.
So
I do
yesterday,
too. That's so funny that you say that.
Yesterday I was, Wednesday I went to my yoga class, and the guy next to me is my age, but very flexible. And I say, how many yoga classes do you do a week? And he says, well, I do this, and I do the stretching class tomorrow. So you should come to that. And so I said, okay. And so tomorrow was yesterday. And so all morning long, I'm like, I don't want to go stretching. I don't want to go stretching. It's all that fear. I can't, I'm so not limber. So I said, oh, that fear, right? I go, I know how this worked out. I was inspired to ask this guy what he did to be more flexible. He told me and invited me.
Right.
And I'm going to go. I knew the second he said it, I was going to go. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole time between then and then was knowing that the fear was going to pop up too.
Right.
And then making that decision that I'm going to push past that fear. And I did. And it was great. It was awesome. There's only 3 people in the class. It was fine. I could do everything.
Right. I'm always about that. I think through learning about what that really means in your life, that you hear those little inspired thoughts or those little light bulb that go off, and, it's the fear that holds you back, or once you take that step. And I parent that way, because I'm like, well, what are you thinking? Do you want to go? Let's try that sport. And then all of a sudden, she's wants to be in the Olympics. Like,
Yeah.
But, like you just never would have done that. But those are the magic moments that I feel that when people realize that inner self, that part of you that is so speaking to you all the time in meditation, or, Joshua, when you channel through and, just listening to that and taking that action and going.
Yeah. Well, I bet you people listening to this right now say, I never hear that voice.
Right.
I never heard it before, but it was always there. I was just assuming it was me thinking these thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's like, okay, well, whether the inspiration comes from someone else or from a direct thought, I know that the fear is going to pop up. So this is really important part of it and this is what takes time in the ascension experience to really learn this part.
Right.
That you get inspiration when you're in alignment, when you're feeling good, and you're always going to have fear, because what happens is you exist at this limited state prior to the experience that this inspiration is providing for you. From that limited perspective, you have a belief system that's not compatible with the expanded version of you that will be there when you have the experience. And this, you can look at this at any time in your life when you've pushed past fear to have an experience, you changed and your belief system changed. And so you look back and you're like, what was I afraid of? It doesn't make any sense. But that fear will always, always, always be there, because it has to be there. Because you have to make this tiny little leap of faith to push through the fear and go to the next thing. On the other hand of that, when you're upset, you can have urges to change the conditions. That feels like inspiration, but it's coming from a state of fear. And anytime you act on that, you're going to be exploring who you're not, and more manifestation events will happen, and more stuff you don't want will happen, and it won't be effective, and always like effort and struggle and all that. So we've come to this place where we're working with the system rather than against the system. And it's easy, and everything just flows all the time when that happens.
So true. Just, listening to Jim on the call was saying, how he just couldn't thank you enough. And if you're listening to this, sign up for something, the boot camp, the ascension experience, it's changed my life. And we all feel that way. And you think of, how my life has changed, my relationship with Richard. Like, there's no way I could have an argument. Like,
I know, isn't that funny?
Oh, there's no way. And in fact, when I watch, sometimes he'll get kind of triggered by the girls, their behavior, and I watch it, and I just go, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then we kind of, I can see him getting closer to my, okay, well, Ashley's not reacting, wait, what am I doing? Then it takes yourself, you have to look at yourself going, wait, but I think you had that with Tracy.
Yeah. We haven't even had a dirty look in our whole relationship,
Wow.
It's great. I didn't think this was possible. Yeah.
Oh, I know. But when you were talking about this on the coaching call the other day about your previous wife and how you had those dreams about the planes crashing and how you got the Bitcoin, all those things started coming. I didn't know that you were married before. I didn't know. Maybe I just knew. I knew you didn't have children, so I guess that's where I went. But explain to me, so how, because you believe in relationships, like if it's not working, nothing's wrong with moving on to the next. I love that analogy. It helps my friends that get a divorce and feel guilty, right?
Yeah. So Lily and I got married in 1999, and she's very spiritual, and she's been there with Joshua from the very beginning, and she's acknowledged in all the books, and Joshua's actually said it's because of you that Joshua came through Gary, because of all the questions that she had. We were in these kind of courses before, and we got the secret together, and we went to all these Abraham Hicks events together. And what had happened, we lost everything. And so we rented this house and fixed it up, and it was great. We sold it, moved to Palm Beach. And in Palm Beach, we went to our first Abraham Hicks. And then at that first Abraham Hicks, we both said, from now on, we're only going to do what we're inspired to do. So for me, it was poker and renovating houses. And for her, she's always been really good at design, interior design and stuff like that. We are just walking our dog down the street in Palm Beach in the middle of summer. There's not a soul in the whole town because everyone leaves in summer. And this car goes whizzing by and slams on the brakes and stops. And it's her friend, Trisha. And Trisha gets out, and they haven't seen each other for years. And Trisha starts showing her how she's designing furniture. So she's stripping furniture, painting it, putting new fabric on, that sort of thing. And this light bulb hits Lily, and they start a business, and Trisha doesn't want to do it. So it's just Lily's business called the Painted Ox. And so Lily started this huge business. It's really big in West Palm Beach, where she'll take people who move from the north with their brown, ugly furniture, and they lacquer it and put Florida colors and prints on it. And it's
cool,
stunning. So she's built this up, and then I had my thing, and I had Joshua. Now, one thing about me is people were constantly coming to the house to say hi and spend the night and be with Gary and all that stuff. Or I was doing these events, right? So it was like I was being pulled apart because she wanted me there. And I came to the realization that I couldn't do Joshua in that relationship. And nothing was wrong with the relationship. It was fine. It was just that this was the next stage for me. So I had this huge inspiration to buy a house somewhere in the South with a lot of bedrooms that we could hold events. I would just use it for the events, or maybe in summer or something, but that was it. So then I find this house in North Carolina, and we're just going to, at the time, buying it just to use it as a thing, not even thinking anything else than that. Come in this house, start renovating, and then it was like obvious I have to move here. Well, Lily had her business and her family with employees and all that stuff back in West Palm Beach. She wasn't going to come, and it just made sense. So we left on perfect terms. And I mean perfect terms. And we have her friend, who's a lawyer, did the divorce for us. It took a week. We had all the things agreed up. We had everything split. It was like I said yes to everything, and Lily said yes to everything, and it was like done, And so Lily and the lawyer and Trisha are going to be joining the Ascension Spirit Experience next round.
Oh my gosh, no way. That is amazing. Full circle. Oh, I love that. No, I just think of, when you think of your journey of how, you took inspired action, you pushed past fear, you lost everything. And you look back at everyone has their story, look back, you don't living how we live in the Ascension experience, because we know that it's perfect, and we know that everything's working for us. And we know that, there's anything that we think is bad is not. And having that as a mindset versus having the mindset back when, when we were in our 30s or whatever, going through the real estate loss and, thinking, oh my gosh, my life is over. I lost all my money, da, da, da. But knowing what we know now, like thinking of what our life will become, and then I think, okay, well, we all look younger. Do you think our life's going to go to 200 years old? Where does that, who decides that?
We decide it. And what happens is we will decide from our non-physical perspective, the exact perfect time and the perfect way to transition back to the non-physical. And before we know it, we'll be in a new life because there's no time in the non-physical. So you're there. The second you think about it, you're in a new life, right? And it's all created for you, by you. And then you'll have another experience of life and you'll just keep doing this because we really want to be in the physical. Those of us who are been doing this a while, now it gets exciting because now it starts to become limitless.
Right. Okay. So this time thing for me, I'm really trying to.
It's weird.
It is weird. Yeah. And I understand it to a point, but when you think of it's all happening at the same time, my future, my past, I'm like, I just go, okay, well, if we leave this body, it's like our suicide. We choose our death. We've already decided I don't know. I mean, I know I planned it. So then here we go. And then right back into a body to do it again.
Well,
until we decide we don't want to.
It may take, 50, 100 Earth years, but from the non-physical perspective, it's just a moment.
Okay. And you can see that as Gary, you understand that.
Yeah. Cause I had that experience during this psychedelic experience. So
okay.
I got to see what it was because in the non-physical, all the stuff that is really fun about being physical, like having this conversation, isn't possible in the non-physical because we all know everything already. So what are we going to talk about? Right. We all know everything. And then the communication is all instant nonverbal because we do it through vibration. I mean, this sounds nuts, but I had this experience. I was my God, it makes all kinds of sense. Yeah.
But you did that. I had one of the women that was, that talked about psychedelics in one of my groups in this class.
Yeah.
And so I've had that come up a lot, like, I've done mushrooms to get, the psychedelic. I'm like, I know, I think I've never really done drugs. So I think the feeling of thinking that is like my mind, I have a limiting belief that it's a drug or that I'm out of control or the ayahuasca. Have you done that?
No, what I did was 5-MeO DMT. It's a 15-minute experience. And what happened to me was, so you pass out and then you're in a, I don't know if you're unconscious, but for me, I woke up and I'm on a bed of bubbles floating in the universe. And all these bubbles are saying, millions of them through every cell of my body, not hearing with my ears, but hearing with the whole body, is we love you, we love you, we love you, we love you, like that.
Wow.
And I say, I love you. I love you. And I stand up. Most people don't stand up. I stand up, I go, I am love. And this feeling comes through me. It's like unbelievable. I just realized I am love. And so everyone who's in the room is now there, but I see their non-physical selves. They're all pure, right? And they all look at me with this calm expression that they understand everything. And as I'm saying, I am love, I am love. And they're like nodding. Yeah, you're getting it. You're getting it. I am love. And so the feeling was that the entire universe came together like a clock coming together for this perfect moment, right? All the things had to assemble from the beginning of time for that one moment. And I felt it was Gary, but I was Source having this experience, right? Okay. And so this Gary and Source melted together. So then I see everyone and I go, oh my God, I know you. I start screaming this. I know you. I know you. And we were in a apartment in New York City, this magnificent, beautiful, incredible place with windows all around it. And all it was light, right? Mm. and there was no furniture. It was just there, and everyone's wearing their clothes, but their clothes are like illuminated from the inside. And I can see who everyone really is.
Oh my
We're all
gosh.
equal, totally equal, and I've known them forever. And it was just like this amazing thing. And then I started to see all my past lives, but starting from when I was an amoeba, right? And it was
Oh
not
my-
just all my past lives, but it was all lives, all physical life. And it was like cards going like, and I could feel the life emotion of all those lives. And so
wow.
then I had to sit down, and then I got how the whole universe works, the yin yang, what infinity was, what all this stuff was. I knew it all. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I go, we just can be who we want to be. And that's all it is. And then we come out of a life and bam, we're in the next one. As soon as I said that, it's like 10 seconds from this room of light and coming down back into my body, sitting on the couch in this apartment. And now the whole sky is black with clouds. There's a storm, and lightning just goes off behind me as I'm talking.
Oh my
Right? So crazy. But what the funny thing was, so I'm looking at all my friends, and some people, like Tracy was there, and there were a couple of people from the boot camp who were there, and there's people I just met that day. But all of those people, I knew them forever, for eternity. And so I'm talking in the experience, and their faces are all perfectly clear. They know everything I'm talking about. They totally understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I've never experienced that in physical reality. I have talking, and everyone's like halfway with me, there might be nodding, but
Right.
this was absolute understanding. And as I go back, I'm looking at them and they're looking at me, and we're going shifting from this level 10 where we're at back to our human level 5, and it takes 10 seconds, and their faces turn from total understanding to back to normal confusion, right?
Oh my God.
And they go back to their normal selves. And then I start trying to explain it to them, and I can't remember anything. I remember it, but I can't get it out into words. And then one of my friends, Christine, who's in the boot camp, starts speaking in tongues, right? Which I always thought was weird. And as soon as she did, it all came back to me, and I could explain it fully, just like I am right now.
Whoa.
Total, absolute clarity after she did that, right? So it was the most profound thing, but I realized who I was, why I'm here, who everyone else is. Like, we look at this like we don't know each other. Now,
Right.
I'm telling you, some of those people I only met that weekend, and
Right.
and a couple I only met that day, and I knew them for eternity.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was the biggest shocking thing. So everyone we know, if we have been introduced to them, we are eternally linked to them, and we will
Right.
see them on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Would you do that again?
I wouldn't do that again, but I actually have had enough experiences in 2020 that, I've had so many crazy, profound experiences that I would suggest everyone does something. But what I like to do now is breathing sessions. And when we're having a retreat in a couple of weeks here at the house, and one of the people that are coming to it is this fantastic person who does breath sessions, and it's this deep breathing. Her name's Genevieve, and if you want to find her, just send me an email, or send you an email, and we'll send Genevieve Solomon, if you might look that up.
Okay.
And so she does these sessions, and it's an hour of deep breathing with this music. You're lying on your back with a blindfold on, and you're just breathing like that, really deep and really fast for an hour. And there's DMT in your lungs, and it activates that, and you have this very mild, wonderful psychedelic experience in your own body, and you can turn it off at any time by just breathing normally or getting up. And it's not as powerful as that, but it's just as informative as that is.
Wow.
Yeah.
After that experience in New York, did other people that took it, did you talk about it afterwards?
Everyone's experience is different, but no one's had one like that before. Yeah.
Why do you think you did?
Yeah,
Because you're
I'm ready for it.
You're on the next.
Because that experience was necessary for me, and I was ready for it, and it helps me to go deeper into this and opens my belief system up. After that was 14 nights of downloads. And so I would be woken up. First time was 4:44. The next night was 3:33, then 2:22, and awake all night with these intense downloads, just flowing into me. And it's like, okay, you try and think of something else, but we're going to bring you back here. We're going to bring you back. Here's what we need you to know now. This is how this works. This is how that works. This is actually how your emotions work. And it lasted 14 days of that. And it was really intense.
And is
that sort of thing is not normal.
Oh my, when you say downloads, is it like a dream? Are you seeing?
No, I'm awake. They wake me up. So I'm wide awake. This was, so it's 4:44, 3:33, 2:22, 1:11, 12:12, 11:11, 10:01, and one night was 8:11. So I was exhausted at 7:30.
Wow.
And went to sleep and then woke up at 8:11, for that session, and lasted all night long. And so I'm literally getting maybe 2 hours of sleep a night or so, full of energy, just full of energy. But the whole night is like this really intense classroom, basically.
And that was last year?
That was, in August last year.
Okay. Yeah. So now that you've had those downloads, now what has it changed in you? Like, are you deeper with Joshua?
Yeah. So I'm at a place where, so for instance, like I said in the beginning, I can only speak English because I believe I can only speak English, but they could say it in French or whatever, but I would have to believe that. So some of the more higher level concepts, I can't say because I don't believe them. So now that my beliefs have been opened, I can push past the fear and allow them to say more things. Before I was really managing it or controlling it. Don't say anything about UFOs or don't say anything about other dimensions or all that crap that I didn't want to hear about. Now I'm more open and free with that. They're not that they're going to say anything about UFOs, but that's just an example.
Right. I was with my hair girl because she's done the boot camp and now is in the ascension of my tribe is growing.
Is that Ing?
Yes, Ing.
Yeah.
And she's like, I just feel like I'm done with my life. And after this, I feel like I'm, I understand limiting beliefs and I just live, I don't have a trigger in the world. And so we were talking about how, just how, when you listen to Joshua I started sending her just Joshua things, right? So then she'd go, I listened to your podcast and Joshua. That's it. All I have time for. But, we haven't missed one. But I said, do you think it was like 2 weeks ago, I go, don't you feel like Joshua is becoming more like, it's definitely more evolved? She's like, yes, I was going to tell you that. Yeah. But I do feel that way. I felt that way today in that call. Why is that? Is it because Gary's becoming more open to things? And
you guys are too. Yeah. So the first words that were ever said were in the first introduction of the first book was, everything is right. There is no wrong anywhere in the universe. Anything seen as wrong comes from a limited perspective. From the higher perspective, whether that's the non-physical or after a bit of time has passed, everything is always, always right. So that's really what the whole teachings encapsulate, is that everything is right. But now we're going into why we're here. And why we're here is to be on this journey of self-discovery, to discover who we truly are. Who we truly are is this limitless, magnificent, eternal being of pure positive love. Well, who is that? That's source. Right. So who we are is source. We don't get it. We don't understand it. So now everything is talking about just being on that journey of self-discovery and not getting distracted by the detours of fear. So all of this ascension experience leads us to become these deliberate creators. Well, in order to become a deliberate creator, we have to know what alignment is. We have to understand how to get in the mindset of financial prosperity, how to think about our bodies, what the journey of self-discovery actually is, and all the other courses that are in it. I think there's going to be 13. Because we couldn't, if we tried to create deliberately now, what we would do is we would remove the things we think are bad. Okay. So does that make sense?
Totally.
You have
Yes.
to, because
I
you
get
have
it.
to know that everything's right. So you
Right.
can't use your powers to wipe something out, because that will always be based in fear. And if you're this powerful, deliberate creator who's still living in this old approach to life in fear, you're going to create chaos in your life, which
Right.
you do not want.
Keep
Right.
repeating manifestation events over and over, right?
Yes,
Is that what you mean?
exactly.
Okay.
And so this is what the essential experience is coming to this place of absolute acceptance, because when we realize who we are, we're going to really know how much fear everyone else is in. And we can't buy into that fear because it'll drive us crazy.
Right.
You know, we have to be okay with other people living in fear. And so one important tool here is this curve. What's it called? Bell curve, right?
Mhm.
So imagine bell curve on a graph of paper. So at the top of the curve is, in the middle of it is love.
Okay.
And on the bottom is fear. On either end is the most extreme fear. And so as you get to the top, more and more people are more in love than the people on the fringes. So take any subject, say gun control. So on the left of that curve is people who are against guns, who are against guns. And the people on the right are the people who want guns. So the people at the bottom of that curve are adamant about their beliefs in that subject.
Right.
So people think guns have to be completely eliminated from the earth on one side, and most fear of guns, right? And on the other side is the most fear of people taking away their guns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the greatest fear lives there. As you come up, you have less of an opinion. And so you're in more love and less fear.
Right.
And as you come to the very top of it, imagine there's 99 people in this group, that one person right in the middle on top has no opinion. It's completely neutral, doesn't care one way or the other. And so this is like the most highest being of love. We have to be neutral. Now, in our society, it's looked frowned upon to be neutral. You must take a stand.
Right.
That doesn't work, because all you're doing is separating yourself from the other people on the other side. That is not what you actually want. What you want is to allow everyone to have their experience, and you realize you're creating it all. It's not going to affect you.
Right.
Unless you need it to affect you. So if it does affect you, good.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so I say I'm neutral. I'm finding myself way neutral. But I
Good.
look
So
at,
do you vote?
do I vote?
Uh-huh.
No.
Yeah, I don't either. Because if you vote, you're picking a side, and you're
Right.
separating yourself from everyone else on the other side.
Right. No,
Yeah.
and in fact, I think of all these, a lot of people in the group will ask about vaccines and not, and I'm like, oh, I don't even care if you do or don't. It's like, what, if you want to put fear into it, great. If you want to put love into it, great. It's for your highest good, whichever you
Right.
choose.
Yeah.
But, all the separation, and, we were in New York in September, on September 11th. And so it was a 20-year thing. And I'm walking the streets, and it's, a lot of these churches are like blocked off for these ceremonies. And I see people praying on the side, and I'm thinking, gosh, 20 years ago, we all know where we were, but I'm thinking, we were coming to get there we were separate. Now this was like bringing us together. And then, all of a sudden we're 20 years down the road and we're wearing masks, and we're having all these protests and separation, and it's like now we're so separate.
Well, it seems that way, but I was watching this documentary about the German people living during the concentration camps and all that stuff,
Right.
and the people who also were survivors of it as well. And so they were talking about what life was like before the war in the 30s. Well, it was extreme anti-Semitism going on, extreme. And they just live with it, right? Because that's what they were used to.
Right.
They didn't know how extreme it was, but it was very much, you are a lower class of person if you're that race,
Right.
So you look at now, and we wouldn't even conceive of that. It wouldn't even make sense to us. How could you even think that anyone is on a different class? So we've come so far, but it seems as if it matters what politics you're on to some people, you know, if you're getting the vaccine or not to some people. I happened to live through 2020. I thought it was one of the best years of my life.
Me too.
Traveled extensively, did everything I want to do. We had 2 retreats here. We had gatherings in other places. I got COVID. It was for me and Tracy, it was almost a non-event.
Right.
And all my friends who got COVID too, non-event for them. There was the guy across the street who was 90 and he passed away. But otherwise, and one other friend's mother, but that was part of their journey as well. And so to see it just from this perspective of this thing is causing fear and people are overreacting. 9/11 happened and we went into a 20-year war in Afghanistan. It was an overreaction, right?
Mhm.
Now, it felt bad at the time, but compared to all the damage that was done in the wars and anti-terrorism and how we all have to, you know, make our way through airport security every time we go to a plane now. The overreaction is all based in fear and doesn't add, you know, isn't what we truly want.
Right.
So we have to think in our own personal lives, if something happens that causes us a lot of fear, we're going to get urges to change the conditions, but those urges are always going to be an overreaction to what's actually happening. Because if you think about the 2 types of fear, it's either rational fear, meaning the subject of your fear can kill you. You're walking in a park and there's a bear on the trail, right?
Right.
Okay. So then you have an urge to change the condition. You either run away or change path or fight the bear or whatever you do. But it takes you off your path, right? So it isn't anything you want to do, but you're just getting away from the danger. Now, if it's an irrational fear, it means that the subject of fear can't kill you. Like someone says something that hurts your feelings, right?
Right.
Now you can say, I'm never going to be friends with you again. That's overreaction to this event. It's acting as if you're a victim to someone else who can hurt you. It's not paying attention to your limiting beliefs, and you're not getting what you truly want, which is love and connection with everyone. So we have to understand that fear is going to cause us to receive urges to change conditions and overreact to what's actually going on. But that overall, we are all moving towards more love and everything is getting better and better and better and better and better.
Right.
And if you just, but we can't perceive it because we didn't live 100 years ago.
Right.
We don't know how they felt. Now, the interesting about all of us who are interested in these teachings, everyone listening to this podcast now, is that we are highly emotional sensitive beings. We, compared to other humans, we are way more sensitive emotionally, but that's a superpower. We actually want to get even more emotionally sensitive, not less. So as we get more clarity, we get more emotionally sensitive. And one of the side effects of all this is people will say, well, I handle manifestation events better, but when they come along, they feel so bad now.
Right.
I really notice them. And you want to notice them. That's the whole point.
Right.
You want to become sensitive. And so we're getting more, and now you can see the kids coming in today who are being born now, they all seem very emotionally sensitive to me.
Oh, me too.
Right?
Please,
Because they're
yes.
coming now at this different time of awakening. 100 years ago, everyone was tough as nails.
Mhm.
My grandmother was tough as nails. You know, she was not emotionally sensitive compared
Right.
to how we are, you know? So we are evolving to this, you know, the light beings that we are, which are extremely emotionally sensitive, but we'll be able to maintain alignment. And then in the off chance we ever dip down into fear consciousness, we will notice it and get back out of it.
Right. You know how you talk about, or Joshua talks about, you know, each generation is born into a vibration, you know, and these kids now are born into such a higher vibration than where we were born into.
Yeah. But because it's confusing to them, they are in emotional duress, you know, they're all over the place. They can't figure it out because they've been taught that system that doesn't work.
Right.
And so they're trying to control themselves, everyone else, trying to get what they want. They think they're in lack, all these things. They don't realize how powerful they are emotionally, and they don't realize it's just these limiting beliefs that they have to process. So helping kids learn to do limiting beliefs is process those is probably the best thing we can do.
Oh, and that's my passion, Gary.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, just with my girls, they'll be like, Mom, that was a limiting belief. You should hear our conversations.
You should
That's a
write
limiting belief.
a children's book
I know I should.
about limiting beliefs. Yeah.
Yes, that would be. Thank you. That's
So limiting beliefs are just balloons that you carry around with you.
Yeah, there you
and
go.
you can let the balloon go.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Good idea.
But you're afraid to let the balloon go because you think that you need the balloon.
Yeah.
Right? You think it's yours. So you're holding on to it. But when you get into your classroom, or when you go on the bus, or when you go on the amusement ride, you can't bring the balloons with you. Right?
Yes.
So you gotta let them go.
Oh my gosh, I have goosebumps. I can see the illustrations where they go in the bus and I see all the balloons going out of the, up into the sky.
Yep.
Oh, that's great. That just came to you?
Yep.
Yes. But you think of, all the kids I've coached throughout since 2020 is when I really started with this podcast, and watching how hungry they are for this and so receptive. And then it starts, now the parents are like, wow, my house is so happy and different. They're like, what's going on? I'm like, and then they want to know what I teach. So then I started teaching the adult version of the raising confidence. But, when they learn their self-limiting beliefs, of all the 8 weeks, I have one, started like week 4 is self-limiting beliefs. They need a few weeks before to get to where they have that mindset of understanding, like you're in charge of everything that you think, feel, say, do, be. And now they're at this place of self-limiting beliefs. So I've used all of the Joshua, trying to teach them the manifestation event form and, and how to process that. And then, you think of once you get that, and now my girls are 12 and 15, they're like, Mom, now it's almost hard for me to react. And with Paige at school last year in 9th grade, it was like, so-and-so's this, they did this to me. Oh, the victim. This year's, she's like the duck off, or the water off the duck's back, right? Like nothing can bug her. She's like, she's on her journey. And I'm like, oh, thank you, God. Like, it's just so beautiful to see the fruit of the labor come into, because now she's on her own more. I'm not with her all the time. So it's like, okay, I hope I equipped you with the right tools. And then I see her doing them. I'm like, she's got it.
Especially if she can see what 9th grade was like. You remember how 9th grade was when you were like reacting to everything, and now how much better you're doing now?
Yeah. There's a definite contrast. And I love that. I know we're at the end.
That's crazy.
Gary, I love this so much. It's going to be like all Joshua. I was looking at the group. I'm like, we should have like a group on my podcast where we can all talk about the ascension experience together. Yeah. And all our, how we've experienced all of our limiting beliefs and manifestation events. And that's going to be after my book. Thank you for that idea.
Absolutely.
So we're going to email Gary at garybodley@gmail.com.
Yep. We'll go to the website.
A new 7-day course.
So for beginners, there's the 7-day course. We're making it just $29. So it's 7 days. It has the manifestation event form. It has Jessica's video tutorial and a guide, and then there's meditations on it as well. And so there's a lot to it, daily spiritual practice and reading and the manifestation event form. And it is the preface to what we do. So it's the very basic design is this manifestation event form. And so for a limited time only, I think, next couple of months or so, it'll be $29. And if it changes the price, and just send me an email and I'll make sure you have the right price. So it'll depend when this conversation comes out. And so that's at theteachingsofjoshua.com. And then the Ascension Experience, which we're starting another one, everyone starts in alignment because you got to sort of start there. And that will start in the first Monday in October. So there'll be people all over the world going together. You'll have a partner, just like you've done and everyone else has done. And it really will change your perception of reality. Just that 1 4-week course, you will make this shift. Mm-hmm. And if you're inspired, and it's a money back guarantee too, so it's 100% guaranteed. It's $297. So that one thing will change your life more than anything else, because this is an experience. And as Abraham says all the time, words don't teach. You can read as many books as you want, and listen to podcasts and watch videos. Words don't teach. They're great, but experience teaches. And so this will change your set of beliefs. So one of the other courses are great. if you do the $20 course, you're going to do the Ascension experience anyway.
Yeah,
That's just
no,
how it
that's
works.
a no-brainer.
But it'll get your feet wet if you're afraid to dive in the deep end.
It's funny. So I'm speaking to the listeners. If you're listening to this and it's talking to you, push past the fear and do it, because there's a reason it's on your mind. And it's funny because I'll bring it up to people if I have an inspired thought. Oh, I'm going to ask so-and-so. That might be something she's ready for. And then I'll send it to her or send it to somebody. And then they'll say, oh, let me think about it. And I'm like, oh, it's not for her yet. She's not ready, and it's not, it's black or white. I brought it up to a lady I was interviewing the other day, and she goes, what is oh yeah. Like Paula from The Lawyer of Attraction.
Yeah.
Remember her?
Yeah,
I
of
was
course.
interviewed on her show, and she was like, oh, I love Gary. I met him on a cruise. He was so sincere. She's like, I don't know how to describe him, but he's just so sincere and real, and to know you in real life. But she's going to sign up. So she was all excited. Yeah. But it's that when I can tell when someone's pulled to that, and I don't usually go out, I just talk about it. And then they're like, what is that? And then I'll go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it is something that it's an inspired thought.
What happens is we're all inspired to do stuff like that, but we're so worried about most of us are so worried about what people will think, that we don't do it. And here you are doing it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. Oh,
it's great.
Anyway, thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
This has been so fun. Like always, I'm sure we'll have more.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thank you.